Success is always delayed from when the work happens. I've been meeting with a lot of entrepreneurs these past few weeks who have scaled past a million in ARR and they're growing even more. And everybody kind of says the same thing, which is that you put work in to a bank and then at some point you make a withdrawal, but you don't know exactly when that withdrawal is going to happen. Case in point for this, I interviewed a creator who's at a million followers now, and she was talking about how she posted 3 times a day for a year on Instagram. And then prior to that, she'd already been on the platform for 2 years. So this is year three. She's posting 3 times a day. And one video takes off and gets her to 100,000 followers. And then the rest is basically history. But it's all about that work that happened in those previous 3 years. It wasn't that one video. Everybody likes to anchor on the one video and talk about how, oh, this is the big thing that happened. This is the catalyst that happened. I have a similar story in our business. We were almost bankrupt. This is like 10 years ago. We've been in operation for about 5 years. We had pushed as hard as we possibly could, done thousands of calls with customers. We have all this content out there. We have all this product out there, all this stuff built. And then it just kind of clicked one day. It turned a corner and all of a sudden it took off. All of our money problems went away and we started growing really quickly and hit 1 million ARR within like 2 years after that. So everybody likes to ask me about that story and say, well, what happened? What'd you change? And there was things that changed. Sure, like there was constantly things that were changing. There were constantly updates that we were making, and there's nothing that I could point to where it's like, oh well, we just flipped that button over, or we changed that page, or we implemented this new strategy, and all of a sudden it all took off. That wasn't the case, and I don't think that's really the case for anybody. I think what actually happens is you build and build and build, or you make deposit after deposit after deposit, and you get nothing back for just such a long time. Could be 2 years, could be 3 years, could be 5 years, could be 7 years. And then eventually you make that withdrawal and it just happens. And you just hit those metrics that you're trying to hit forever and that felt so elusive, that felt like they were never going to happen. And then just one day it does happen. But I think what's happening behind the scenes when you see a scenario like that, when you hear a story like that, is there is somebody or a team of people that's working every day and getting a little bit better every day. Like that creator that I talked to, her posts were getting better every day because she was practicing. She'd post 3 posts, watch them back, kind of see what could be improved, what style could be improved, how to become more unique, what kind of takes might be more resonant with people, but also true to herself. You are constantly practicing. Same thing for my company. It wasn't like we just sat there idly for 7 years and then all of a sudden it started to take off. It was the fact that we were constantly making little bits of progress every day. And I think this is the part that gets overlooked a lot in business and in entrepreneurship. Everybody likes to focus in on that one moment, that one catalyst of change, that one moment where it all seemed to spark and ignite and just go ballistic. But that's not really what's happening. What's happening behind the scenes is that you're constantly improving. Now, there is a caveat to this, which is I also interviewed another creator last week who was talking about how you have to be very adaptable. You have to adapt to changes that happen in the market. Because I was kind of asking her opinion on a question. And the question was, okay, so if you're consistent and you share a good story, is that all it takes? And her answer was no, that's not all it takes. There's another component, which is being adaptable to what it is that the market wants, what it is that the market needs, what your audience needs, what your audience is interested in right now. You can't just stay consistent and share a story if it doesn't match up with what people are thinking about, what they're struggling with, what they're thinking, what they're feeling. I said thinking twice. Basically, what's on their minds. What do they want to know from you? What are you uniquely prepared to be helpful with? And that changes. I would say that is a moving target that never sits in place. I don't know if you're familiar with this quote that history doesn't repeat, but humans do. Meaning human nature doesn't change, but the events that happen do change. And so while people stay relatively the same, I was reading a book from Erasmus this week. He wrote this book in 1500 or 14, something like that. And you could literally just change the wording and it would apply to today because it's speaking about folly, which is a human trait, basically the fact that we're all ridiculous idiots. And that has not changed from then until now. But what has changed is the circumstances that are happening. Back then, the average lifespan was like 40 years. It's not the case anymore. And back then, there was no cars, there's no computers, there's no AI, right? Things in the world change, but the way people act and behave relatively the same over time. But you have to be keyed into what's changing in the world, because if you are trying to speak to people, but the way that you're trying to speak to them is not relevant to their lived experience on a day-to-day basis, which is a thing that changes all the time, then you're screwed. You're totally screwed, because you are not going to be speaking to what's actually going on with people. And if you're not speaking to what's actually going on with people, they're not going to listen. It's like giving an example, right? And let's say, it's 2026 right now, and I'm giving an example of a floppy disk. And you're like, what the hell is a floppy disk? It's not relevant. But if I say you run out of storage on your phone, now people get it. And it's the same analogy. You're just not speaking the right words. You're not speaking in the right way that people can understand in today's world, in today's happening. So, as best I can tell, the two things that really matter in terms of breaking through to consistent, profitable business is consistency over a long period of time and self improvement. And then also adaptability to what's going on with the market. In our business, I think the biggest mistake that I've made, I'm the CEO of a company that does 3 million in ARR. It's been around for 14 years, bootstrap, profitable, 9 people on the team, excellent team, great product. But my biggest mistake was missing the boat on video content. Basically, we had a great foothold on Google traffic. Still 90% of how we get customers is through inbound organic traffic. Now it's more diversified. We have YouTube, we have a podcast, we have short form going on. We have all the channels now. But for a long time, I did not invest in video content early enough. We missed the boat. And so the transition when Google started to prioritize AI search results, AI overviews, paid results, very few organic actually sifting up there. We did not have a new thing going. There was one going down, and the one that was going up, we were not on that. And that cost us for a number of years in terms of our go to market strategy. That's a case in point of not being adaptable. We were still consistent. We were still consistent with posting content that was meant for Google, that was meant for SEO traffic, that was meant for capturing the long tail keywords the way that we used to, but that was on the decline. And I was not quick enough on the draw of understanding people are still using Google, yes, but there is a subset of people who are now using Instagram and YouTube and TikTok to get their information, whether it's passive, like it's just delivered to them, or they're actually using it as a search engine, which is becoming more and more common. And we missed that. And because we missed that, there was a number of years where there was a missed opportunity. We're able to get it back now, but I do think that's like a case in point where you can have one side of this equation being very consistent and be missing the other side of adaptability, or vice versa. I've seen people who are highly adaptive where they know exactly what the market needs, but they lack the consistency. They lack the discipline to stay consistent over a really long period of time. And I can't stress that enough. I think anybody listening that has been around for a while is like, well, duh. It does take many years to really get the flywheel going. But anybody that's starting out is like, wow, that feels like forever. 3 months feels like forever. 1 month feels like forever. But I will tell you, especially if you're using content, at least our experience, 1 year to first revenue, 3 years to really have a flywheel going. And then once it dropped, right, and we're having to restart it, I think it's the same time frame. It's like 1 year to really get something going, 3 years to have a real good flywheel going. And if you can't stay consistent over that amount of time, you're just not going to break through. A lot of people like to talk right now about a trust recession, which is fair. I think it's a bit overblown. I think that it's not necessarily that there's a trust recession now. I just think that in a previous time where there was a lot of abundance, there was a lot of money flying around, it was just easier to sell things. It was easier to convince people to buy something from you. Now I think it's just kind of reverted more back to the mean, to the norm, where somebody might need to follow you for 2 years before they want to buy. I have countless stories from Interact, the company that I run, where it's a quiz software. Creating quizzes for lead gen, which is what we do, is often a new thing for people. And I have so many stories of people that came to us, we had a good conversation, takes a year to activate, takes 2 years to activate, takes 5 years. I think the record is probably 10 that I can think of off the top of my head, but there's probably somebody that I just didn't talk to that took longer. I think that's the norm. I think that is much more the norm than here's this nice clean funnel where you just got your ads to your your tripwire to your product to your higher price product to your membership to your whatever. Or if it's software, it's like you get your ads to your free trial to your software. No. I've heard a number of creators talking about this recently, but my friend Ryan, who was on the podcast, talked about a content web, which is a fancy way, I think. Well, I don't know if web is a fancy word, but it's a way of saying that people do not just see something and then follow themselves nicely through, guide themselves directly to your paid products. What they do instead is they see something, if it catches their attention, maybe they see if you are on another platform, they see you on LinkedIn. Okay. Is this person also on Instagram? Let me go check that out. Or they see you on YouTube. Then they're like, oh, well, are you on TikTok? Let me go check that out. They check out multiple platforms. They read reviews. Maybe they